That was life-changing experience. Sleeping in the tent outside, the first tent, in the middle of nowhere.
The bush.
We're barricaded in the bush, hoping that nothing comes out here and eats us. Yeah, life-changing experience. But from a child to now, my goal has always been to travel the world to see. The United States is great, but there's always something that you can learn, even with photography, like being able to capture those moments through the lens so that you can always look back and refer to as like, oh, I went here. This was my experience. Very life-changing.
Today, I have the honor of sitting down with Brandon Coach B. Spencer. He's the founder of Be Lifted 360 Life Coaching, where he helps people navigate career transitions, strengthen relationships, and create balance in their lives. Brandon is also a father, an adventurer, and a creative spirit with a passion for photography. But beyond all of that, Brandon is someone I've shared incredible life experiences with, from traveling to Africa together to attending conferences like the Waymakers Men's Summit. And today, we're going to dive into his journey, his mission, and the lessons he's learned along the way. Brandon, welcome to Dapper by Design.
Glad to be here.
Awesome. So, how have you been doing today?
Oh man, traveling. You know, it's quite a distance from Houston, Texas to Richmond, Virginia.
I know. Thank you so much for coming in today. What is something that you've been reflecting on lately? Since you had this long travel.
Reflecting on the previous year, we're 2 months into this year, 2025. The previous year, 2024, was a very busy year.
It was.
Of course, we set goals and we're checking boxes and doing those things for 2025. And the months are just flying by. So I don't want to miss opportunities and things that I can accomplish with time moving. So reflecting to make sure that I'm staying on task and checking my boxes to get to where I'm trying to go.
Awesome. So as a life coach, your work revolves around helping others and help them step into that purpose. How do you discover your own?
At a very early age. Of course, growing up in church and ministry, it's like try things and see if they work. Singing in the choir, being a musician, being a leader of an auxiliary. So those things we learned early in our childhood coming into adulthood. And they kind of like crafted or molded us into things we would maybe pursue as careers as adults. So that's kind of where that journey got started in the church as a child growing up, being able to help people, being able to guide people through life.
Awesome. So as you were going through that, what was one defining moment that made you know that coaching and mentorship was your calling?
Being a youth leader or youth director, having teenage boys, teenage girls transition from high school into life, whether it's going to college, whether it's going into career. That's where I found the greatest value, just trying to help them navigate those paths.
Okay. So one of your core messages is about breaking through challenges. What has been one of the biggest obstacles in your own journey? And how did you get past that?
One of my biggest obstacles was having in corporate America, we say work-life balance. In the church world, I'll say family life balance. And in church, being in multiple positions can require or take up a lot of your time.
Absolutely.
One of my greatest challenges was managing my time to ensure that my family didn't feel neglected. I was still able to, meet the obligations of leaders or of the church and the congregates. So that was one of my greatest challenges. So to overcome those things, I've definitely made some large decisions. Like even one was relocating from North Carolina to Houston, Texas. That was a decision to invest in my family because you can serve all things in ministry, but I always feel like your family should be your number one priority.
Awesome. So how does faith play a role in your approach to coaching and personal development?
I've read scripture where it says, all it takes is the faith the size of a mustard seed. All of this is done by faith. We have no clue how it will pan out, the paths we will take, the people's lives that we will bless or change. My faith lines with that if I'm educating myself, if I'm living life experiences, and I'm taking those things that I know and sharing them with other people to guide them through life, my faith says that they will reach their goals too. They will achieve the things that they set in life. They will overcome. They will, if it's deliverance, they'll be delivered. And then when we look back at the journey, we can say, your faith is what got you here. Because we do all things through Christ,
Yeah,
who
absolutely.
strengthens us.
He strengthens us. Awesome. So you've built Be Lifted 360 Life Coaching with the mission to help people create fulfilling careers and stronger relationships. What inspired you to launch this platform?
From years of coaching or mentorships, is what we called it back in the day, you have so many people connected to you, so many people coming to you asking for guidance, or if you be a listening ear to someone, they will then take some of your life's experience and apply to their lives when they're making decisions. Doing that for so many years with the youth ministry, with coworkers and peers, I'm like, how can I make this bigger than what it is? How can I reach community platform? How can I reach corporate platforms outside of the church world? Because like I said, that's where it started. Bridging that to where the foundation of Be Lifted 360 started, I'm like, I can get paid for this.
Yes.
I can charge by the hour. I can create a package and sell to help people get to where they're trying to go and kind of guide them through.
Awesome. So what are some of the most common challenges that your clients face, and how do you help them navigate through that?
The most common is relationship. Everybody's trying to figure it out. Whether you're married, whether you're dating, whether you're single and having relationships with friends, corporate relationships, business relationships. I think the directions are very similar in all entities, but relationships is one of the biggest or greatest demands that I've experienced in this.
Okay, and how does your faith play a role in your approach to your coaching and developing?
My faith. Anytime I'm approached by someone, I receive it with maybe God spoke to their heart and directed them to me for the guidance. If I am approaching someone, I approach it with a prayerful mind that, Lord, give me what to say. I've read books, I've gotten certifications, but all of that still is behind faith. Faith is the foundation of it, where it started.
So what is one breakthrough story from one of your clients that stands out to you?
The one breakthrough, I was coaching a young man in relationship. First, he came to me in his early 20s. He wanted to be married. After several failed relationships, he was just like, I just give up. I'm just going to date myself. I was like, but if you want to be married, I was like, there are steps that you can take to kind of position you and prepare you to be ready for marriage. So it was like a process. It took a couple of years, him working on himself to make sure his mindset was right, having the goals of how to lead a marriage, to lead a woman, having the confidence in how to pursue a woman. So it was a journey getting him there. Today he's married. He has children. He has a career job. Him and his wife are homeowners. And they seem to be checking the boxes of the things that he identified that he wanted within the coaching program that he went through.
Awesome. So for those who are listening right now that may be stuck in their career or their personal life, what is the first step they can take to get unstuck?
Contact me.
And after they contact you, what's another step they can take?
We will have a consultation, like a 15-minute consultation, to go over what it is that you're seeking and you're looking for, and kind of craft a plan of action of how you can achieve that goal. And then let's put it to work. First, I always say, identifying what it is that you want, what it is that you want to do. We can think of things like, I'm thinking, I'm kind of hungry right now, so I want to go get something to eat. But I have a podcast to shoot with my buddy over here. So the first thing is, I know that I want to get something to eat. How am I going to get to that something to eat? So coming up with a plan. So I'm like, how much longer are we going to be doing this to get something to eat?
All right. So we've traveled a lot together. That's one of the ways that we connected. And we've gone to Africa recently, which was something special. That first time ever for me sleeping in the tent was in the Maasai village. I believe that was your first time too. That was unforgettable. How was that experience, that whole trip like for you? Let's talk about some of that.
Africa. Let's just say that life is definitely not the same. We traveled through the lens with Jermaine, and that was life-changing experience. Sleeping in the tent outside, the first tent, in the middle of nowhere.
The bush.
We're barricaded in the bush, hoping that nothing comes out here and eats us. from then sleeping into the next tent where it was pouring down raining and our tent is exposed and waking up and our socks are wet. And it's just like, yeah, life-changing experience. But from a child to now, my goal has always been to travel the world to see. The United States is great, but there's always something that you can learn, even with photography, like being able to capture those moments through the lens so that you can always look back and refer to as like, oh, I went here. This was my experience. Very life-changing.
Wow.
And I got to do it with my best friend.
Hey. And looking back at those pictures, like what stories do they tell?
Ooh, they tell some real stories. The one that stands out the most was we had to supply dinner for the travelers.
Oh my goodness.
And the main course or the meat was goat. And you carried the goat to its tomb where it was going to lose its life. And I was a part of its losing its life.
Yes, he suffocated the goat.
Oh my gosh. And then we were kind of like forced to eat it. I was like, yeah, I can't do this.
You didn't eat it?
I did not.
You did not eat it. But they were eeating it raw.
They were eating it raw.
But they cooked ours.
Woo, life-changing experience.
So it's something about Africa. But what was it that surprised you or changed your perspective? What's one thing that did that?
I think being adaptable. Like we were put into situations that were just not common or familiar to anything that we've ever experienced in life. And when you're taking those travel trips to countries you've never been to, everything is different.
Yeah.
It's not really the same culture. It's not the same way of life. Staying in the bush, there was no toilets. There were no bathrooms. There was no running water. There was nothing there that we were familiar with. So, so that was my first trip with this group. I didn't know these people from a can of paint, as they would say. But day one, upon my arrival, it was an immediate opening greeting. I felt welcome. And they welcomed me as family. And I felt like at the end of our travel trip, when we were standing at the airport and you guys were going one way and I was going the other way, and the hugs, they were real, genuine hugs. Like you can tell, like we built family connection.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to our trip in 2025.
2025 is going to be something.
Excited.
So a few months before we went to Africa, we also attended the Waymaker Men's Summit together. And this event was all about Black men elevating professionally and personally. What was your biggest takeaway from that experience?
Don't be afraid to try. That was my biggest takeaway. A lot of our African-American men are excelling in life. Just being in a room with people who, my greatest was DeVal Ellis. He graced the stage and to share his journey in acting and from football and how he's a father to his children. And he makes sure that, his kids have the best life that they possibly can, but also maintaining his dignity and his Blackness.
Right.
In this society and as the world is changing, we have to teach and educate our kids to embrace the color of their skin and to know their value and know their worth. And don't let anybody tell them anything different. And that if there's something that they want in life, they can have it. It may require some hard work, but you can have whatever you want in life.
You can have whatever you like.
Whatever you like. You can go wherever you want to go. You can do whatever you want to do as long as it's legal.
Yeah.
And don't get in no trouble. Amen.
Amen. And one of the things I loved about the summit was a sense of brotherhood. What does community and mentorship mean to you?
I think I'll use us as an example. So I don't know if you found it or I found it online. I think it was you. You found it online. You sent it to me. It's like, hey, check this out. So I looked at it. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Here's a conference we go to because we go to conferences all the time. And then I was like, well, what's the registration fee? He's like, there is no registration fee. I'm like, okay, so I don't know what this is going to be like.
What's the catch?
What's the catch, right? Am I going to have to buy something when I get there? But the culture of men, Black men coming together with their talents, with their gifts, and they're sharing this across this large platform, thousands of brothers that were there. You could get a headshot if you were there. You could get your beard or your haircut. and these things didn't cost.
The massage.
You get a massage.
I mean,
you know,
the giveaways.
There was food. There was, you know, entertainment. There was the one thing that really stood out was, you know, as men, you know, we have children. So you could bring your sons,
Right.
and they had like a game room where the kids could go and play. You know, maybe they don't want to attend this session, but they want to go and play and have a good time.
And they had training and mentorship for them too.
Absolutely. So it was like a well-rounded event. So you just left with so many nuggets, so many tools to put into our toolkit. And I'm kind of looking forward to what they'll do this year.
I've been on the lookout. I'm like, is it up yet? Is it up yet? Let me make sure I register.
I'm like, all right now, come on so we can get these airline tickets.
Tickets early, right?
And we set the goal to take our sons
Absolutely
back with us because they need to see this. They need to experience it. That we don't have to, our growing up, where we come from, we don't have to live in a box.
Right.
You know, God is bigger than that box, you know.
And
He owns the cattle of a thousand
I'm even
hills.
challenging, you know, other listeners if you know, this may be your first time hearing about it. And no, I'm not getting paid to, you know,
Getting
shout
paid
out
to promote this. We're not.
But I'm like, you know, my friends and brothers, I'm like, let's go. Let's, you know, make a group. Let's go together. Because we all come up together when we iron sharpens iron. And that's our opportunity to build community.
Absolutely.
And even like mentorship amongst each other. We can definitely grow together.
And be on the lookout because as we go to these conferences, you never know what may come to your city.
Hey.
Hosted by DMP Studios,
Hey.
DMP Podcast, Dapper by Design Podcast, Be Lifted 360 Coaching. You know, we got a lot going on over here.
We got a lot going on. Some guidance and leadership and connections.
There
You know,
it
we
is.
might put it together, you know, something through what we're doing here today.
Mm-hmm.
Designing the life that you want. You know, you do that through mentorship, through coaching, and through training with your brothers. So you're a dedicated father, business owner, and someone on a personal wellness journey. How do you find balance with all that? I think we hit on it a little bit earlier, but let's go ahead.
Ooh, finding balance. I think I was all out of balance when I started. It's good to connect yourself with like-minded people who have shared similar interests in life that can kind of push, encourage, challenge, all those things in that relationship. So having a balance can a lot of times be a struggle for a lot of people. For me, I'm blessed with a good friend. When we talk about physical wellness, you know, you introduced me to a book called The 5 a.m. Club that kind of helps you own your life for the day. So I started reading that and then watching your journey, like you're dedicated to getting up at 5 a.m. in the morning, heading to the gym, you know, your meal plan, your meal prep. We even hired a trainer to kind of guide us through that. So being committed to that, then after you've put the work in, then you'll see the results, right?
Right.
You start seeing your body change. In addition to that, finding balance, right? Because I have a wife, I have children, I have grandchildren.
Grandpa.
Yeah, pop. Finding a balance is very much of a challenge in our house because I still work a full-time job to supply, you know, financial needs for our family. My wife works full-time. Our kids in school, they're in sports. You know, after work, a lot of days, you know, we're headed to baseball, basketball, football practice. We have to help with homework. We have to remind our kids, teach them how to, you know, to do chores. We have to make sure they eat. We have to make sure I eat, you know. So a lot of days we're good. But then there are still some days where, you know, I may not own the day, the entire day, but I still strive to own that day.
So what are some strategies that you use to, you know, keep up with your time?
Oh, I love a good calendar.
Be
Amen.
intentional.
I love a good timer. It's good for us to, you know, if you're like, I do a lot of project-based work. So sometimes I can get deep into the project and lose sight of time. So to balance that, I'll set a timer. I'm going to commit 1 hour to working on this. And when that timer goes off, I need to walk away from it. Come back to it at a later time or another day. Because if I set this timer, I need to stick with that and move on. Sometimes you can get foggy brain or, you know, get tired brain and you're just not able to keep it progression moving in the right direction. So sometimes walking away from it and giving a moment, then come back to it with a open mind and you're able to move on. That's the same with relationships, communication. If you have a disagreement with, you know, a family member or a coworker, and through communicating, you're back and forth. You have an idea, they have an idea, and we're not hearing each other. Sometimes it's just, all right, let's stick a pin in it and walk away from it, and we can come back to it and hopefully to reach a resolve.
Okay, so as a life coach and father and all the other roles you have,
Yeah.
you're always pouring into others. How do you make sure that you're also pouring into yourself?
Ooh, reading is good. Church is good. Having a community is good. Having a wellness plan is also good. Taking time to exercise, taking time to pamper yourself through wellness, care, whether it's sauna, steam room, pool, gym, all those things. Like I practice all those things to make sure that I am altogether well.
Awesome. So what advice do you give other parents who are also juggling their goals while raising a family?
I would say keep Christ first, write out a plan, and have connections and community with other people, because iron is going to sharpen iron. Everybody's parenting style is different. What may work in my house may not work in your house. But I can also share what does work in my house, and you may be able to glean from some of that and try it, implement it into your house. Raising kids is not the same as it was when we were growing up.
Yes.
One, the cost is different. How much does it take? How much is a gallon of milk? I think a carton of eggs now is like $7.
Crazy.
So, which requires us to have to work a little harder to make more money, or work a little smarter to make more money. So the times are different. The book that was written on how to raise kids, I hadn't read that yet.
I haven't read it either.
Because I'm kind of like writing the book as I go. So I'll say, don't give up. You are the light to your children, and you have to teach and show them the way. And through living life, and if you love your children, you'll do what is necessary.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So looking where you are now versus where you started, what's one perspective shift that changed everything for you?
Seeing the fruits of my labor. We can always give advice. We can always guide. We can always, share our opinions and how things should work and how things should be. When people actually take what you say, implement it, go through the process, go through the steps, and then they get the outcome that they was looking for or wanted, that's very rewarding, which is very similar to how I lived my life and how I planned for my future. Being strategic in having a plan, one, and then seeing those things come to fruition, that's my reward.
Awesome. So how do you define success at this stage in your life?
I think success for anyone is what you value to be success. For me, I had a plan early in life. I planned to be married by the time I turned 25. I planned to have kids by the time I turned 30. I planned to retire by the time I turned 50. Today I'm 41, so I'm 9 years away from retiring. After 50, I plan to travel the world. I've kind of already dipped into that, traveling the world. So I'm kind of like strategically working the plan that I set. But that came through prayer too, like, defining who I am as a person. Like, what do I want out of life? What would God have for me to be in this world? So that was my defining moment. Come up with a plan. You got this.
So what legacy do you hope to leave behind with all of this success?
When I go to meet the Maker, or called up to meet him, whichever one he chooses for me, my legacy will be footprints all over the world. You'll know Brandon or Coach B was that guy that always brought joy and light to a room, to a situation. Even if he experienced a moment of sadness or experienced like a moment of defeat, he still found a way to pick all that up again and continue to strive. Definitely in my children, they'll know, their dad was a hardworking man to make sure that they have the best life that they possibly can have, and holding to the values that I've taught them from an early age in life.
Awesome.
They say train up a child in the way they should go, and when they get old, it won't depart from them. So I live by that creed of the scriptures.
So living by that, what's another quote or mantra that you live by?
I can do all things through Christ
Do it, do
that
it, do
strengthens
it.
me. And I should have whatever I want in life. So, and the things that I want, I try not to compare or care about what others have. Like you and I talk a lot about about things.
I heard it when you started.
You know it, right? And I'm like, oh, that's nice. I love that, for you or whoever. That's wonderful. That's great. I have no desire to have those things. But the things that I do desire to have, I work to achieve them. And when I purchase or buy or experience those things, like I feel the reward in that moment. And then I appreciate it so that it'll last me. I'm not as fast to make large lump sum purchases, right?
Right.
We've been in the store and you're like, just buy it already. And I'm like, no, I'm going to plan it out. Just want to make sure this is the right decision. So I can be very stubborn in that manner. But when it's something that I really want, and I've prepared and I've saved, it's without a second doubt. I'm swiping. Let's go get this. Make it happen.
So what is one habit that has made the biggest difference in your growth?
Consistency.
All right. So now I want you to tell everybody, what is one powerful takeaway that you want to leave with our audience?
If you are struggling in any area of your life or finding it difficult to achieve what it is that you want or to accomplish whatever it is you want, seek guidance, ask questions, hire you a professional if you need to, so that you can achieve all that you want out of life.
Awesome.
And always keep God first.
Keep God first. So what's next for you in your journey?
Oh, man. What's next for me? I'm working on some things. I just say more to come.
More to come. Be on the lookout.
I keep a very low profile. My client base, I'm not very public with them. It's very, personal and private. Even with my photography, I think, God, I can make a ton of money in photography business. But it's more of for me, it's kind of a hobby. It's not my primary source of income. So my stride may not be as some of the others, but I definitely am working on things and more to come.
More to come. Well, Brandon, it's been great having you here on Dapper by Design. Your story is a powerful reminder that faith and resilience and intentional growth can change everything. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your journey with us. But before we close out, let's take a minute so that we can let people know how they can connect with you, whether it's on your life coaching, your mentorship, or just to follow you on your journey.
Sure. My Instagram for life coaching is belifted360_coaching. You can find me there. Facebook is an option. Search my name, Brandon Spencer, and I'll pop up. Located in Houston, Texas. H-Town, turn up. H-Town meets VA. Here we are.
Here we are. All right. So to everybody else that's listening, if this episode has inspired you, do me a favor and subscribe to Dapper by Design so that you don't miss out on future conversations like this one. And if you found value in what Brandon has shared today, take a second, leave a review. Share this episode with someone who needs to hear it, and tag us on social media with your biggest takeaways. Let's keep this conversation going and continue building a life by design and not by default. Until next time, stay intentional, stay inspired, and I'll see you on the next episode of Dapper by Design.